Hello, everyone. This is Jared Pixley for Pixley for President again. Last week, I went into detail about balancing the budget. Specifically, I discussed taxing the rich and things that I would cut from the budget in order to reduce our deficit. It was a bit of a longer video, about 35 minutes, I believe. But there is still more that I want to talk about, and I will continue that discussion this week. I was reading over the Congressional Budget Office's ideas to balance the budget again. I don't like many of their ideas, like adding a work requirement to get Social Security disability or raising the age to collect Social Security benefits. However, there was one that I saw that I liked. It was to increase the corporate income tax by 1 percentage point. Currently, corporations have a flat income tax of 21%. By raising it to 22%, we would collect an extra $14 billion, they estimate. And maybe then Amazon and Tesla would actually have to pay something. As I said last week, the federal budget is about $6.8 trillion. But where does all that money go? The Department of Defense has a budget of $900 billion, and they're actually the third biggest line item on the budget. Above them are Medicare and Medicaid. The two of them together amount to around about $2 trillion. So a little less than a third of our budget. And I'll discuss that later in this video, but I would want to increase that. The Department of Education's budget comes in at $238 billion. Once again, I'm using the 2024 numbers, which is what I will want to restore many of these gutted government agencies back to. That budget included Biden's plan for schools to buy healthy produce from local farms. I would like to restore that plan and to increase the budget to maybe $240 billion. Now, just a little extra, and maybe more than that because I'm not really accounting for inflation. But to give schools a little extra to spend on teachers and materials. As a comment on my previous video indicated, I was not very clear about this program. So Biden had a grant program where the Department of Education gave schools extra money for them to buy foods from small local farms, the mom and pop farms, the independent farms, not corporate farms. For them to buy fresh food instead of using cans of ultra-processed foods that are full of high fructose corn syrup. Now, this was good for the children because it was giving them healthy foods, and the farms liked it because it gave them customers. In 2024, ICE had a budget of $9 billion. Now its budget is almost $30 billion. Compared to the FBI's budget of $11.4 billion, and I was not able to get the CIA's actual budget because of all their black items. As president, I would slash ICE's budget back to $9 billion, as well as fire anyone involved, as well as fire anyone that failed their background checks, their fitness tests, or their written exams. And I would refer anyone who'd been involved in crimes to the DOJ for prosecution. Now, with that $9 billion budget, in 2024, they were able to deport more people than they did in 2025 with their $30 billion budget. So that extra money is not doing them any good. The Department of Veterans Affairs was given $307 billion in 2024, and they requested $340 billion for 2025. I believe in taking care of our veterans, and I would be willing to budget them their requested amount. These people have served our country and have suffered for our country, and we should give back to them. The Department of Transportation's budget in 2024 was $90 billion. I would want to raise that a little because of my infrastructure plan. I want to invest in our airports. It was in the news back in early 2025 that some airports, including Newark, used air traffic control systems that were built back in the 90s. Newark's went down and caused massive flight delays. And that went on for over a week. Those systems need to be upgraded. I'd want to offer grants to perhaps the 50 busiest airports in the country to help them with that. I'd also want to continue Biden's plan for road repairs, to fix potholes in highways and repair bridges. So, the DOT would need extra money for that. As part of my infrastructure plan, but not related to the DOT, I'd also want to invest more money into the EPA in order to replace lead pipes. A study a few years ago, right after they fixed the pipes in Flint, Michigan, showed that there were about 100 other villages and cities with high lead content in their water. Some even higher than what was found in Flint. I want to work my way down that list and get those places clean water. And obviously that will cost money. That's why I find it so important to cut where I can from the budget, reduce the deficit so I can invest in these things that we need. As I said before, Medicare and Medicaid are two of the highest budget items in the budget. And I want to increase that. I believe in healthcare for all. Healthcare should be a human right. Most of Europe, several countries in Asia, I think even a couple countries in Africa, believe that healthcare is a human right. Even Russia, you get healthcare from the government. You don't have to pay for it out of pocket. So I know that it's a big change from the U.S. market. And it's a change that will take time. But I think we need to take steps. The Affordable Health Care Act was a good first step. Let's take another. I would want to raise the limit for Medicaid. Maybe just 5 or 10%. And add another 1 million people or so, to the rolls. But that will cost more money, and that's one thing I am trying to fix the budget, to figure out how to fund. And like I said in the previous video, if there's any economist watching this channel and would like to become one of my counselors, my advisors, work your way into my inner circle and perhaps get a job in the White House when I'm elected, reach out to me. I could really use your help. But I figure if we can increase step by step, a little at a time, increase what we have on Medicare and Medicaid. I'd also want to roll those into one. Why do we have two separate plans? Let's just make it one. One Medicaid. Increase the number of people that can apply for it. And I'd also want to increase the payout. Just a nudge, just to beat inflation and make hospitals happier to have people with Medicaid. Because they would get extra money as well. And that could go back into paying for the nurses and doctors on staff, the CNAs, the dietitianists, the people who mop the floors. Pay back to the hospitals. Pay it to the hospitals and let them pay it back to their employees. Because those people deserve to get a good paycheck for all this. Having worked in a hospital before, 2 different hospitals, I know how it is. Long hours, bad patients, people with bad attitudes. But so that is just some of where all of our money's going. There's a whole lot of other departments. Let's say I mentioned the DOT, the Veterans Affairs, the EPA, There's Department of Interior, Department of Agriculture, Small Business Association. Their budget is not that much. Um, yeah, but your money goes all over. It goes to fund road. It goes to fund interstates. Um, Smaller roads are done by state and city, but it funds interstates. It funds railroads. It funds airports. It funds harbors. It goes to schools. It goes to farmers. Um, you know, Taxes go everywhere. Yeah, it's not just to the military-industrial complex, though. They do take a fair share. Um, and right now it's going to for-profit prisons. It's lining CEOs' pockets. That's the stuff that I said last week that I want to end. I want it to serve the people, the common people, not the rich. No more subsidies for, multi-million-dollar companies. Let them, they're making enough money. Let's raise their taxes so they can pay back what they've been taking from us. I want it to go to the farmers. I want it to go to the students. I want to go to the construction workers. The people paving the roads. The crossing guards, the teachers. The nurses. The real people. So, I hope this short video makes up for the long video from last week. Please like, subscribe, share my videos, help get the word out. If you want to support the campaign even more, you can go to my website. You can follow my social medias. All of that is listed down below. My book is still available on Amazon if you want to buy it and know even more. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.